In 1967, Muhammad Ali was stripped of his heavyweight title and banned from boxing for refusing to be drafted into the US military during the Vietnam War. Ali's decision, rooted in his religious beliefs and moral objections to the war, was a bold act of defiance in an era when dissent was often equated with unpatriotic behavior. His statement, "I ain't got no quarrel with them Viet Cong, no Viet Cong ever called me the N-word," struck at the heart of Americans' racial hypocrisy. Ali pointed out the irony of being asked to fight for a country that denied him and other black Americans basic rights. The backlash was swift and harsh. White America, in particular, vilified Ali, labeling him a traitor and a draft dodger. His defiance of the government and his outspoken criticism of systemic racism were seen as affronts to social norms. For many, especially those in conservative regions, his refusal was an act of arrogance by a black man, unwilling to know his place. The stripping of his boxing license and the legal charges against him were emblematic of the institutional racism that sought to silence figures like Ali, who challenged the status quo. Racism Ali faced upon his return. In 1970, Ali's boxing ban was overturned, but his return to the sport was met with persistent racism and hostility. Public opinion remained divided, particularly among white Americans who viewed him through the lens of the Vietnam War and his association with the Nation of Islam. Ali faced institutional barriers even after regaining his boxing license. Some states refused to host his fights due to his controversial reputation, and the media frequently portrayed him in a negative light. Commentators dismissed his talent as mere bravado and scrutinized his political and religious beliefs in ways that other athletes never endured. This reflected a broader racial prejudice that sought to undermine his character and diminish his achievements. Despite his dominance in the ring, Ali was often asked to justify his opposition to the war and his commitment to the civil rights struggles. His interviews frequently turned into interrogations about his patriotism and faith, highlighting the double standards imposed on him as a prominent black athlete and activist. Amidst the racism and hostility, Ali found unwavering support from key groups that eventually helped him transform public opinion. From the beginning, the black community stood firmly behind him. His embrace of black pride, his alignment with the Nation of Islam, and his vocal resistance to racism resonated deeply with African Americans. Ali became a symbol of defiance and dignity, inspiring millions who saw in him a reflection of their own struggles. Prominent civil rights leaders, including Martin Luther King, later praised his stance against the Vietnam War, recognizing it as part of the broader fight for racial justice. The counterculture movement of the 1960s and 1970s also rallied around Ali as the Vietnam War became increasingly unpopular, particularly among young Americans. Ali's anti-war stance gained widespread admiration. College students and activists viewed him as a principled figure who was willing to sacrifice his career for his beliefs. This growing support from diverse groups helped broaden his appeal beyond the black community. Ali's legal victory in 1971, when the US Supreme Court unanimously overturned his draft evasion conviction, was a pivotal moment. It not only vindicated him legally, but also shifted public perception. Many began to see him as a man of conviction who stood on the right side of history. His performances in the ring further cemented his redemption. Iconic bouts such as the fight of the century against Joe Frazier in 1971 and the Rumble in the Jungle against George Foreman in 1974 reminded the world of his unparalleled skill and charisma. These fights showcased not only his physical prowess but also his mental fortitude, earning him respect even from those who once despised him. By the mid-1970s, public opinion about Muhammad Ali had shifted dramatically. The same brash confidence that once alienated audiences began to be celebrated as part of his charm. His eloquence, humor, and humanity endeared him to people across racial and cultural divides. Ali's growing popularity was not confined to the United States, but around the world. He became a symbol of resistance and hope. His visits to Africa and the Muslim world were met with adulation as he was seen as a champion for the oppressed and a unifying force. In the US, the evolving civil rights movement and increasing awareness of systemic racism further validated his earlier stances. Ali's journey from vindication to adulation is a powerful narrative of societal change. He endured immense racism and hostility, yet his principles and perseverance reshaped public opinion and transformed him into a beloved cultural icon. Ali's life serves as a reminder of the costs of standing up for justice and the ultimate rewards of remaining true to one's beliefs. His legacy transcends boxing, inspiring future generations to fight against injustice and embrace their identity with pride. In the end, Ali was not only the greatest in the ring, but also a champion for human dignity and equality, whose courage left an indelible mark on history.